thought, wow, I can be so healthy. And then finding out also I didn't have to hurt animals was a huge bonus because I absolutely adore animals. Never thought to research maybe the other side of what are the downsides of veganism. It was kind of just a lot of research that just reinforced the belief for me. I was sold. I was 100%, like, it felt, almost looking back, it felt like a religion. I was sold. It made complete sense, and I thought it was great. I really thought I would be vegan forever. My family tried it and they were like, "You're drinking this stuff?" I said, "Yeah, maybe I should try that. Maybe I'll feel even better," because I think slowly I was starting to feel worse, and so over time I just thought, well, let's give that a try. But it was almost like the frog in boiling water situation where I did not notice until much later on. Some of it not even until after I had stopped being vegan. Then in hindsight, I said, wow, this has been wrong. I've been feeling crappy for a long time and I didn't even realize it. And I was like, surely there's gotta be a plant food, that can do this same thing. And so I went down that rabbit hole and I found that there is no plant food that can do that. Your body has to rebuild using animal foods. Ultimately, what it came down to is I needed help. I was really struggling. I was in a lot of pain, and I felt desperate enough that when I came across this information, it was starting to make sense. It was very quick. The tooth pain went away, like, I would say within almost a week.
I want to clarify for vegans that may be watching us who think that, how can you think that it's a chore to be a vegan? How can you think that it's a burden? How can you feel that?
I think it will just be people feeling, because they're being told by doctors and by officials that this is a very healthy way to eat. Eating meat replacements and eating a pound of broccoli had more protein than a steak or something like that. And this is just ridiculous now hearing.
Hello everyone, my guest today is Leandra. And Leandra was vegan for 7 years, and then she has been an ex-vegan for 3 years. For the most part, Leandra followed a whole food vegan diet while being vegan, and then switched to an animal-based diet. So today we're going to explore her journey. Hi, Leandra.
Hi there. I want to thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to share my journey and give a little bit more insight into some of the answers for my survey.
Thank you. It's really great to have you here today as well. I'm really grateful that you made it here, that you found time to talk. So the first question that I will ask is, what motivated you to participate in the ex-vegan survey, and why did you want to share your story in an interview as well for people to hear?
Yeah, so I really wanted to participate in the survey because I feel like there's so much kind of misinformation around vegan diets and plant-based diets. And because I have lived that lifestyle for almost a decade of my life, it was a significant amount of time. And so because of that, I feel like I have a lot of insight to give to the study and to help other people maybe not go down that path, or if they do, to maybe stop a little earlier than me, catch on to some of the health problems that can creep up. And additionally, when I stopped being vegan, I felt like there was a lot of gaslighting, because I would hear things like, you were never actually vegan, or you did it wrong. And this is just kind of my way of sharing my information of how I really tried to do my best and I really believed in it. So
I see. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So the question that we'll start with is, how veganism came to your life to begin with?
Yeah, well, it came into my life in my early 20s. I was feeling pretty just sick in general, and I remember I had watched a couple Netflix documentaries. One of them specifically was Forks Over Knives. That one really sold me. And then I watched, I think it was What the Health, and a few other ones. And basically after watching a few of those, I was amazed. I had never heard any of this before. I never heard of veganism before that. And so I started doing some research online about the vegan diet, and I came across, I'm pretty sure it was PETA's website, and they showed a lot of factory farming, like animal cruelty, and that just really affected me. So it was A lot of it was about the health. Initially, finding that out, I thought, wow, I can be so healthy. And then finding out also I didn't have to hurt animals was a huge bonus because I absolutely adore animals. So kind of felt like a win-win. I thought I had stumbled upon a jackpot. I said,
Mhm.
wow, like I found this amazing information and I couldn't wait to share it with the world. That's really how I felt about it. Very naive, but yeah, it's kind of how it came into my life.
I see. Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense. It's also what, like 10 years ago, right? Yeah,
Yes,
10 years
exactly.
ago,
Yeah.
just to assess the landscape of events. It's
Yeah.
like it was 2014. Okay.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
quite
interesting.
different and there wasn't a lot of all the vegans, like there weren't any like vegan snacks and treats. There really wasn't a whole lot of that when I first started. So very different.
Yeah, I guess you could not just like stumble upon label vegan at every
No,
store you go to. So
no,
it was not part of daily life of people.
exactly. Yeah, it was very different.
I see. So you were a very young adult back then
Yeah,
when you became vegan. So
yeah,
how did people around you react to that decision? And would you in general, like if you had I mean, I guess we will figure it out as you talk about it, but
yeah.
uh, we're able to find any like support and community when you just started.
As far as like family and friends go, everyone was really supportive. My family growing up, we were never huge meat eaters to begin with.
I see.
Yeah, my mom was vegetarian for mostly vegetarian. She had some chicken here and there, but not big meat eaters. So she was like, "Great, honey, that's awesome." And uh, my friends were very supportive. They, bless their hearts, they sat through so many lectures from me and they just smiled and nodded and they were very supportive of me. They never joined into veganism, of course, but they were very loving and they just appreciated that I was passionate about something basically. And then my in laws, we definitely had a lot of debates and discussions around it. That, though, is not uncommon for us with my in laws. We love to debate lots of things: politics, culture, religion. So, debating about diet was nothing new necessarily. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the feedback and pushing back. And then I'd say, I'm going to research that and try and come to a conclusion on that one. So, yeah, it was great, good banter. But I got, a little bit of pushback. But like I said, everyone was very accepting. And sorry, was there another question that I missed?
Yeah, whether you were able to find community of
Oh,
like
yeah.
like-minded people as well, like outside
Not
of your immediate circle.
Yeah, no, not necessarily, but I did have good community in my immediate circle. My husband did become vegan as well. And then my mom, ultimately, she was vegan for around 5 years as well. So that was kind of my community, essentially. I didn't really necessarily branch out besides that.
I see. That's
Yeah.
nice. So you kind of remained inside of your familial system
Yeah.
without like, juxtaposing
Yeah.
yourself. Like,
Yeah, and family and friends, if I was going to an event or like a gathering with them, then they would provide, a vegan burger. If they're doing grilling burgers, they would provide a vegan burger or something like that. So, you know, uh, very supportive. I
very
really
nice.
appreciated that.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Did you research the subject of vegan nutrition prior to switching? And
Yeah.
if so, what resources were you using to guide your lifestyle?
Yeah, I somewhat did. I like in hindsight, I don't think my research was that great, but I tried to research some. And I think a lot of the research I was running into was just maybe had somewhat of an agenda behind it, in my opinion, now. And it was basically just touting veganism and plant based diets as, you'll never get cancer and it's the healthiest
Mhm.
thing you can do. And so it was all kind of confirmation bias, I guess, in a way. I never thought to research maybe the other side of what are the downsides of veganism. It was kind of just a lot of research that just reinforced the belief for me. So it's kind of, yeah, but I never really followed a lot of vegan doctors or anything like that. I
I
knew
see.
of them, but I did not necessarily follow them.
I see.
Yeah.
Did you, when you were researching or like looking into this information, was
Mm-hmm.
there anything that you felt like, I'm not quite satisfied with it? I'm not quite confident that it's supposed to work like that. I don't know, like, were there any conflicting things in vegan teachings, like in terms of health, or were you all content with everything that you were reading about it?
Um, no, everything made sense to me. I was sold. I was 100%. Like it felt almost looking back, it felt like a religion. I was sold. It made complete sense, and I thought it was great.
I
I
see.
really thought I would be
Hmm,
vegan
I
forever.
see.
Yeah.
All right. If we think about your transition, was it like cold turkey, or did you like do some like veganuary when you go for 1 month, you're vegan, then you go
Yeah.
back, then you go back to vegan, or did you just started it and committed, or how was the transition?
For me, very much like my personality, it was cold turkey. It was overnight. I had watched the documentary and I saw the animal cruelty online, and I was like, I'm never touching it again. So yeah, I had oatmeal and black bean tacos the next day, and I was off.
I see.
Just overnight. I remember I had like chicken in the freezer and I gave it to friends and family. And so I didn't throw it away, but no, overnight, done.
So you in the survey you said that you were on standard American diet before you
Yeah,
switched to vegan diet.
yeah,
So how did vegan diet feel in contrast to you? Like if you switch from standard American to vegan,
yeah.
how did your body respond to that initially?
Well, I was definitely standard American diet, but I leaned heavily on like low fat, sugar free. So the food was highly processed and a lot of, added sugars and food dyes and stuff. So very standard. But like I said, because I did focus on fat free and stuff like that. It really wasn't that hard because, with the vegan diet, very low fat, mine was. And so it wasn't too difficult. And then additionally, I've always been someone who's eaten just a lot of fruit and veggies to begin with. I've always been that way, even as a kid. So no, I didn't find the transition difficult. I felt really, really good at first. Yeah,
So how did the first months feel as a vegan? Did you have honeymoon phase? Do you remember some?
absolutely. Yeah, I absolutely did have honeymoon phase. I remember it almost was kind of a euphoric feeling. I look back on that time in my life fairly fondly, actually, because I did feel so good. I felt light and energized, and I remember I made big juices and smoothies, and I took a spirulina smoothie to work every day, and I just looked forward to drinking it. At first, I felt amazing. So I definitely had a honeymoon phase, and I thought I was on top of the world.
So, but at the same time, you reported that you had some vegan junk food phase
Yeah.
as a part one.
Yes.
What? So then you followed whole vegan diet for 5 years. So
Hmm.
why did you make switch? Why did you choose those dietary patterns? And can you compare what was it about the processed vegan foods that you didn't like?
Yeah. Well, basically, the processed eating more of the processed vegan food that was somewhat circumstantial. I think what happened was, well, my husband he went off to university, and I couldn't support myself on my own at the time, so I moved in with my mom and my stepdad, and so if I was stayed on my own, I probably just would have continued eating the way I had been for the most part. But moving in with my mom, she could afford to get all the fancy treats and vegan donuts and all that stuff. And at the honestly though, at the time, by that time, I was 5 years in, I was drained mentally. Like I could not focus and concentrate. So I couldn't follow a recipe, or like when I would come home from work, which I didn't have a demanding job, but when I came home from work, I could not focus and have the energy to put together a meal. And so she really kind of held the glue together for me during that time. And so she would make me meals, and she made a lot of casseroles, and she used tofu and different vegan dishes like that. So that's kind of why I ended up transitioning, mostly circumstantial, to
Mm,
be honest.
I see.
But I enjoy, I at first I really enjoyed it because I felt like wow, this is fun. I get all these treats that I haven't eaten in years. So, but eventually, everything all just kind of caught up to me at once.
In terms of also dietary choices, were you ever tempted to try some more specialized vegan nutrition protocols, like, I don't know, leading towards raw veganism, fruitarianism,
Yeah,
or some like cleanses? Those are popular, like some detoxes,
yeah,
juicing sessions, whatever it is. Was there a phase like that in your vegan journey?
yeah. There was. Mild, very mild though. There was, I follow, I think it's Fully Raw Christina, and so I wanted to try raw vegan, and I lasted like maybe a week. I was so miserable. I was starving all the time, so that did not work for me. And then I think it's Freely. She did like a raw telfor, and I enjoyed doing that for quite a while. I wasn't very strict with it, but every once in a while I'd be like, oh, I kind of do want to eat raw and telfor around 4, and then have my dinner. So yeah, I did a few things like that, and then also I tried the medical medium smoothies like cilantro and wild berry, blueberries and stuff. And I remember kind of enjoying the smoothies, but I'm not very picky. My family tried it and they were like, "You're drinking this stuff?" I said, "Yeah."
Mhm.
Anyway, so yeah, I tried a few things, but never really strict with it. As long as I was vegan, to me, that was good enough.
I see, but what was your motivation to try all those? Like, was it just, I don't know, looked cool, or
Yeah,
why did you have this idea?
somewhat kind of just experimenting a bit, just kind of seeing because if I would see maybe an influencer who's promoting that, and they would look so healthy and active and thin, then I thought, wow, maybe I should try that. Maybe I'll feel even better because I think slowly I was starting to feel worse, and so over time I just thought, well, let's give that a try, and none of it ever really stuck for me. Yeah.
So it was kind of possibly trying to find some solution, like
Yeah,
different
somewhat.
approaches.
Yeah, somewhat.
You said that you started like gradually feeling worse. After how
Yeah.
many years on the vegan diet did you start noticing the first problems or like signs that something was off? And
Yeah,
how much time passed before you realized that those things could be diet related?
that one's hard because I think there were things that started to go wrong very early on, I would say within the first couple of years, but it was almost like the frog in boiling water situation where I did not notice
Mhm.
until much later on. Some of it not even until after I had stopped being vegan. Then in hindsight, I said, wow, this has been wrong. I've been feeling crappy for a long time and I didn't even realize it. But I would say I started to actually notice things around year 4. I noticed really bad digestive issues. If I didn't eat soon enough, if I tried to go like somewhat extended periods of time between eating, I would get very bad stomach pain, sharp pain, and until I ate, and then eventually gradually it would go away. But other like bloating and distension, lots of stuff like that around year 4 it developed, and it just progressively got worse.
Hmm, interesting.
Yeah, and then just some fatigue, but I was running, I think I'm running on a lot of cortisol too. I drank a lot of
Mhm.
coffee, so that kind of kept me going where it was like this false sense of energy,
Mhm.
a lot of caffeine.
And
Yeah,
now, like in retrospect, now that you know what it was
yeah.
about and you know the difference, when do you think you should have quit being vegan?
It's hard because part of me is like, I should have never been vegan in the first place, but it's important because it got me to where I am, and to have the understanding that I have.
Mm-hmm.
I was always just hungry for like the truth and this knowledge, and so I'm grateful I got here. But in hindsight, I would say probably around like year 2 or 3, I could have just had a nice experience and been like, wow, that was enjoyable, but got away without any negative consequences.
I see. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you for elaborating because yeah, it's a hard question. Like when
it is.
should
Yeah,
have. I don't know. How can I know, right? But
yeah,
yeah, it's mostly to see when, like now that you know,
yeah,
to recognize when the problems started and
right.
to prevent them. Basically, that's the moment that I want to fish out. Basically, so you
Yeah.
said 3 years. Okay.
Yeah, around 2 to 3 years.
I saw in the survey that you responded that you thought that you would stay vegan forever,
Mm-hmm.
even throughout your so-called end stage vegan
Mm-hmm.
phase.
Yep.
And what changed your mind? Because I saw that it took you 1 week from the moment
Yeah.
when you started questioning things to actually quitting veganism, which
Yeah.
I mean, which I can speculate might be due to, I don't know, either something super scary happening or
Yeah.
finding some very convincing piece of information that could have
Yeah.
undone 7 years of your like programming. So
Yeah.
how was, what was the dynamic there? Like shortly
Well,
before you quit.
yeah. So to kind of set the stage, I was in pain daily. I had almost no energy. I remember when I would get out of bed, I would step on the floor with my feet and I would like feel my bone. I wasn't extremely thin, but I could feel my bone like aching as my foot hit the floor. Like I could feel the like bone on the floor almost. And I was also getting these debilitating pinched nerves. So I was having some thoracic instability, which was causing a lot of back pain and pinched nerves. So I was really going through it at the time. And what happened was basically the straw that broke the camel's back was I started getting tooth pain, a lot of tooth pain. And I've always been someone who kind of wants to, I don't want to just run to the doctor or run to the dentist. I didn't want to do the drill, fill, bill, whole thing from the dentist. I wanted to see if my body could heal somewhat, repair the teeth in a way if the cavity is not too big. And so I tried to do a little bit of research in that. And basically, I came across a video of a guy saying, your teeth can remineralize themselves, but you have to eat liver. You have to eat tallow and butter and cod liver oil and beef. Like everything I would never eat is the only things that can fix your teeth. And I said, oh my gosh, I was appalled. But, and I was like, surely there's got to be a plant food, that can do the same thing. And so went down that rabbit hole and I found that there is no plant food that can do that. Your body has to rebuild using animal foods. And anyway, so the information was very interesting to me. And so, like I said, I was repulsed by it, but also I couldn't look away. I really thought, I've got to disprove this. This is crazy. And I ended up proving my own self wrong, that I was the one wrong and he was right. That's basically what happened. And then I watched more and more information. And I remember watching a video very early within that week of seed oils, which I had never heard about vegetable oils and seed oils before, learning that our ancestors cooked in tallow and butter and lard and how much more healthier that is for us. And I showed it to my husband and he said, you know what this means, right? And I said, yeah, I know what this means. So I was eager. Ultimately, what it came down to is I needed help. I was really struggling. I was in a lot of pain and I felt desperate enough that when I came across this information, it was starting to make sense and the wheels were turning to where I was able to put it into action very quickly.
Nice. You
Yeah.
actually were mentioning that it was painful for you to step on the floor after
Yes.
waking up. It
Yes.
was exactly the same with me for several
Really.
months. Yeah.
Really.
I had a phobia that like I had phobia of that first step on the floor
Yes. Exactly.
and pinched
I
nerves too. It's
Oh, you got
very
a
bad.
pinched nerves as well? Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I rarely get them now. It's just slowly gotten better over the years, but it's been a slow journey and a lot of, yeah, dealt with a lot of back pain and different things like that. I ended up finding out later on that that man that was in that first little video, that man's video, I don't know who he is. I need to find out because he basically saved my life. He was referring to the work of Dr. Weston A. Price. And so did find that. And so I found the Weston A. Price Foundation very early on as well, I think within the first week. And they have a plethora of information. And I adore Dr. Weston A. Price and the work that he did. He was a dentist. And so that kind of fit right perfectly along with, it was the tooth pain and he was the dentist and he was
Mhm.
backing all of this information up. So basically that's what I found. I had found all that information and I was ready to get better.
Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people question their senses for
Yeah.
months,
Yeah.
sometimes years,
Yeah.
and it becomes a very difficult process because
Yeah.
yeah, because health gets progressively worse.
Of
You
course.
you cannot come to you cannot get enough bravery to just make that switch. So I'm really happy
Yeah.
for you that you managed
Thank you.
to do that so promptly. And
Yeah.
in terms of dental health, by the way, did you see the improvement? How quickly was it?
It was very quick. The tooth pain went
Nice.
away, like, I would say within almost a week. The first week, the tooth pain was gone. And the mental clarity started coming back very quickly. Those were the first things I noticed. And that's kind of the frog in boiling water that I had mentioned
Mm-hmm.
earlier. Is I did not notice how poor my mood. I had a lot of like mood instability, and I was just very irritable all the time, and couldn't felt like I couldn't like regulate my emotions very well, and just also so much brain fog. My concentration was terrible. I could not follow a recipe. I was struggling so bad, but I didn't realize how bad it was until I started incorporating. I was eating butter and eggs and different things like that, and I I said, "Wow, I feel human again." It
Mm-hmm.
was quite amazing.
Understand that.
Yeah.
It's it's good to have a memory of that because
Yes,
it's such a miraculous transformational experience, I think.
it was.
It's truly impressive for all the vegans who are considering switching because of
Yeah.
health problems.
Yeah.
I would really encourage you to just do it and see yourself
Mm-hmm.
how miraculous, how surprisingly
Mm-hmm.
miraculous it feels.
Mm-hmm.
It's really worth it. Well, the question is, you said that you had all of those like health outcomes, some unwanted symptoms, a lot of things that were bothering you for a while.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that you tried certain alternative vegan protocols, but I have this question that if a vegan person comes and asks you, what did you try doing to remain vegan during that period? I've been vegan for over 20 years now, and I'm the happiest and the healthiest ever. People always tell me that I look at least 30 years younger than my age. You just did vegan diet wrong, and you're blaming veganism instead of your own mistakes and lack of understanding of nutrition. I cannot believe that the only thing you could think of was to resort to animal cruelty. Why did eating meat appear to be the only solution to you? Have you tried any supplements, meal replacement powders, increasing your protein and calorie intake, adaptogens, sea moss, boiling some broccoli, do blood work and nutritionist consultations, watching Dominion after all? What would be your answer to that?
I would say that I understand why you feel that way because I've been there. I've been in your shoes. I've thought those same thoughts and said the same things nearly. But I think it will. I think it catches up to everybody. It's just at different times. And my time was 7 years, so yours might be longer. And ultimately, I thoroughly enjoy living much more in alignment with nature and with how my ancestors lived and ate and how I think God designed us to live and eat. And that there's so much nuance, like there's so much other information out there, like such as I remember finding out that like if you eat a bowl of rice, there could have been thousands of animals killed to get that rice through um, the spraying and the harvesting process. But yet if I have a half a cow in my freezer, that was only one animal and that can feed my family for a year. So I think that if you're using regenerative farming techniques and eating the way we're designed, you can harm less animals, help the environment, and just ultimately you thrive and you feel calm and happy. And I think that's more important to me than the vegan diet.
Hmm.
So
All
that's
right.
kind of what I would say, kind of give them my little spiel, I guess.
Okay, but in terms of supplementation, by the way, were you on the supplement craze to help yourself?
No, not really.
No.
I no, not necessarily. I did things like spirulina, like dulse, the sea moss, some sea moss grass stuff. I forget what it is. Seaweed. I did a few things like that, but no, I never really did a supplement craze. Yeah, because I didn't think I thought my vegan diet was great. So all the issues that was going on with me, I did never linked it back to the vegan diet. I thought my diet's great. It's got to be something else. That was kind of what I thought.
Yeah, it's like I need to fix my sleep. Probably I'm too
Yeah,
stressed. Probably
exactly.
the wind is too strong outside. That's
Yes.
why my skin is so thin and
Yeah,
fragile.
yeah, you
Probably
got it.
the air quality is oh, air quality. Good one.
Anything but the vegan diet for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the day you left veganism, your first animal meal. Do you
Yeah.
remember it? Like, what was the day like?
Hmm.
What were you doing? What did you buy? How did you eat it? What did you feel emotionally, physically?
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Oh, I definitely remember it. I'll never forget it. I actually broke my veganism at work because I was a nanny, and so the family that I worked for, they had animal products in their house, and so I went into work that morning, and I decided I was going to make. Uh, I made an egg and I put a lot of butter on toast, and I ate that. Um, and my brain practically melted. I could not believe it. It was so phenomenal. And yeah, it was out of this world. But of course, there was a lot of emotion involved. Um, it was so delicious, and I felt so good after eating it. But I also had the feelings of a lot of anxiousness. Am I making the right choice? And then like somewhat of guilt, and then feeling like I failed a little bit. So there was a mixed emotions, but predominantly I did have a lot of relief. I remember feeling like, oh, like this weight is lifted off me. I don't have
Mhm.
to carry this strict, rule and rigidity all the time with me. I kind of just felt this weight lift off.
Yeah, I guess when it starts being taxing on your health, that's
Yeah,
when you enter the territory of daily compromise
yeah,
when you try to be vegan. And so through that, you get exhausted because in the
yeah.
beginning of veganism, I feel like it's a fun, enjoyable thing. So there's no element of that compromise. You feel
Mhm.
great. Food
Mhm.
is tasty. There's some
Mhm.
element of novelty. You're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But then, should it start not working for you, for your body anymore, that's when it starts being mentally exhausting. I want to clarify for vegans that may be watching us who think that how can you think that it's a chore to be a vegan? How can you think that it's a burden? How can you feel that?
Yeah.
You can feel like it's a
Oh
burden
yeah.
when it starts being working against your health.
Yeah.
That's how it becomes chore, burden, anything.
Yeah, it
So,
gradually became a burden for sure. And yeah, I didn't look forward to eating at the end stage vegan. I wasn't looking forward to my meals. It was a chore. And then and I do remember also I wanted to add the first time that I went to the grocery store to actually buy my own animal products. That was quite scary but fun. And so I
mhm.
remember I was very meticulous about each product. Is it grass fed, and I still am that way. I want everything mostly organic and grass fed. I still am that way, but I was just extremely reading every little word on the package. And then, we went to checkout and left the store. And I just remember having this feeling like I was committing a crime. I felt like I was like, I'm sure when I walk out this grocery store door, someone's going to be out there to arrest me because I don't know, I felt like I was doing something wrong.
Vegan police.
Yes, exactly. They're gonna say fraud the second I walk out the door.
Yeah, that's
But
funny.
yeah, but I started looking forward to my meals and I started to feel really good very quickly. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
We'll zoom in on that as well.
Okay.
So now you said that your recovery started fairly soon after you were introduced to animal foods. And the question here I have is that when I read like ex-vegan subreddit, for example, some vegans write there that they're scared of reintroducing animal products because they're not sure how their body would react to them. What
Hmm.
was your reaction to animal products? Was there anything unwanted, anything unpleasant about them, about eating them again?
No, not anything. I had heard people in the past say, "Oh, my friend was vegan for a while, and then she had digestive problems when she started eating meat again. It hurt so bad. I had none of that. In fact, it was quite the opposite. Felt amazing right away. Yeah, the bloating went away and the stomach pain went away. And yeah, mental clarity, like I said, came back. So no, no issues.
And she actually said that, yeah, bloating went away. It was interesting
Yes.
because when I was making videos, like quit, some guy wrote to me that, oh, you're just allergic to fiber or something. And I started off by replacing nuts and seeds with meat. That's it. The rest was
Really?
the same as in my raw vegan diet, but my
Yeah.
bloating went away. And I told
Wow.
him, okay, if meat cures bloating and fiber allergy, okay, I'll take it.
Yeah.
So, and he stopped commenting after that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what were your first animal products, by the way? What can you name the items?
Yeah, the very first one was butter and egg. Yeah, that was first. I do within the first week, I also had salmon. That was one, and then it took me a little bit to work up to red meat though.
Mm-hmm.
That definitely egg and butter and fish were first. I remember doing a little bit of chicken, and it was a mental thing because it tastes so good and I felt so good eating it, but then mentally I was like, I'm eating a dead body, you know?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because of all of that kind of conditioning that I had. But basically just that. And then eventually started working into red meats and yogurt and stuff like that.
I see.
Yeah.
Anything like more exotic, like organ meats or raw dairy, something like that.
Oh, yes. Not too long after I got a raw milk subscription and then organs. Yeah, I started incorporating liver and heart within the first year, but I would say it took me about like 7 months or so to get there.
I see.
Yeah.
Did you have prior experience eating those things, or was it your first time?
No,
No.
never.
Mm.
I didn't even know people ate them. I didn't know that was an option. I had never heard of that. So yeah, but once I learned about it and I learned that how nutritious liver was, I immediately wanted to. What I ended up doing was I found a kind of ground beef that it has liver and heart mixed into the ground beef. And so
Force
I
of nature.
started, yes, force of nature, exactly. And so I started using that and then, but it is quite expensive. So then I realized, well, I'm just going to make it myself. So I started getting organic chicken liver and chicken hearts, and then I grind them up and I just add them into my ground beef recipe myself.
Nice.
Yeah.
Actually, they're often on sale, I notice. I usually just buy a
Yeah.
ton because they go like for $9 at Whole Foods sometimes. They
Yes,
sell their ancestral blends. So that's when I
exactly.
buy a ton. And now
Nice.
when they're $14, I'm like,
Yeah.
I get that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Another question here is that vegan teachings, they often portray animal products as inherently harmful. We all know that
Yeah.
fish is infested with what? With microplastics, parasites, heavy metals.
Right.
Meat is rich in cholesterol, hormones, antibiotics, also microplastics, what not. So
Yeah.
about milk is dairy is all infested with pus.
Sure.
Then cheese is the most addictive drug on the planet. All of
Yes.
that. So how did you deprogram yourself from this mindset regarding animal products? And did you feel like episodes of like health related anxiety about eating animal
Mhm.
products?
It was pretty minor. I did have moments of, am I making the right choice or the wrong choice? And then I'd have moments of, what if I get high blood pressure later on down the line and it's all because, I messed up. But it was pretty minor. For the most part, I had done what I consider now is like actual research. And really, I actually have Dr. Weston A. Price book of physical degeneration. And I was reading through the abstract, like the scholarly articles in this book. And so I felt pretty confident to where I didn't have as much of that, anxiety around that.
I see. Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
So you would recommend Western prices, probably
Oh, yeah.
resources, right, for that?
Yeah, absolutely. To anyone.
I'm very happy actually that there is now even in the papers, if you go read the papers, modern ones, they slowly demonize cholesterol, they slowly
That's good.
demonize saturated fats. It's like
Yeah,
literally all of the things that vegan nutritional school of thought was
yeah,
banking on is being kind of reversed in literature,
yeah.
because the research is being refined. The research finds out that it was states explicitly that it all was kind of fabricated. So I'm
Those
really happy about that.
those Ansel Keys. He ruined it for everyone with the animal fats.
Yeah. Now, question is, what was your post-vegan recovery like, and how you mentioned that the symptoms started recovering pretty soon, but
Yeah.
what was the timeline like for you?
Yeah, there was things that went away immediate, like the tooth pain, the brain fog, energy came back, bloating was definitely improved. But then there were some long-term things like the back pain I still deal with to this day, and the pinched nerves I still deal with somewhat. So the timeline, I mean, there's also I had some issues regarding like fertility, and I would say that stuff started to resolve around like 6 months, 7 months after incorporating animal food. So it was
Hmm.
just kind of gradually things came back.
I see. Yeah, because it's interesting to correlate it with certain nutritional deficiencies because I mean, we know that anemia takes what, 2 to 6
Mm-hmm.
months to reverse, for example. So the
Interesting.
full healing of anemia would take us that amount of time. Then,
Yeah.
if you're deficient in fatty acids and omega 3s, for example, then that takes, I don't remember exactly, like, but about a month to kind of bring the levels back and
Yeah.
resaturate your body and cell membranes with that. Then, so
Yeah.
there are different timelines for different nutrients. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
surprising that certain functions that they take longer, because also
Mm-hmm.
if you need to repair a bunch of essential like vital organs first, you cannot just jump and like I guess in terms of fertility, actually sex organs,
Mm-hmm.
I guess that hormonal system requires you to thrive to be healthy.
Yes, I do consider it our last, like, it's a vital sign, and it's a way our body communicates with us. And so it really shows if you're not just surviving, but if you're thriving, you can
Yeah.
have this extra layer, which is fertility. And so that was kind of somewhat off the market for me when I was vegan, and I saw it slowly,
Hmm.
be able to be an option for me again.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really good, and yeah, seeing how body responds. Yeah, it's again, it's so rewarding. I love this.
Yeah.
I love ex vegan recovery stories so much.
I do too. Yeah, I do
Uh,
too.
so in terms of now, we'll go in more like psychological topic now. You
Okay.
reported that towards the end of your veganism, you developed some form of ED,
Correct.
and I mean, I have probably a lot to say about that in
Mm,
correlation with veganism, but sometimes, veganism sometimes draws people with predisposition for EDs.
yeah.
Sometimes veganism, though, again, in accordance to my beliefs, veganism itself can trigger the EDs through
Mhm.
different mechanisms. And the kind of seriousness, all of the superficial stuff that surrounds the act of eating, it can seriously disrupt how human feels about food, how it feels about eating.
Yeah.
So, in your case, what was the nature of that ED, as you understand it, and what do you think could have triggered it?
Yeah. So in my case, the ED definitely came before the veganism. So I, uh, starting around age 12 to 13, I had developed, excuse me, an eating disorder. Dang it, an ED. I apologize, an ED around that time, a very restrictive one, and then I had somewhat recovered. I would say somewhat recovered at this point around age 16. And that was when I started doing the very low fat and low sugar free, all of that kind of stuff. So I don't think I was ever fully recovered because I was still hyper aware of every food, and I completely avoided animal fat like the plague. I thought it was just terrible. And so basically, I already did have an ED, but then veganism was very appealing to me because one of the reasons is because I had heard early on that you could eat large volumes of food. It's not calorically dense, and you wouldn't gain weight, but you could eat a lot more food. And so that was very appealing to me, somebody with somewhat of an ED and restrictive eating behaviors. So then, as I went through my vegan journey, and I became more and more depleted, what happened at the end stage veganism was that I started to feel out of control with food. And I think it stemmed from my body needed nutrients so badly that it was almost like felt out of my control. And so I would eat large quantities of food and then purge them. But it was honestly, it felt somewhat out of my control. I was just ravenous, and I would just eat like a whole bag of any kind of treat or like a whole thing of granola bars, and then, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and then I would just feel a lot of guilt. And so
I
that's
see.
kind of, so it was two separate, I've dealt with two separate EDs
Mm-hmm.
now at this point. One when I was a teenager, restriction, and then the one at the end stage veganism. But that ED at the end of veganism, it went away immediately. I no longer felt that urge once I actually felt satisfied and satiated with my food.
I see. So
Yeah,
it's an interesting thing. But
yeah,
yeah, you had I guess you had some urge to find the method to coexist with your body's needs
yeah,
and kind of be be controlling over your
mhm,
weight a little bit. So I mean, it's
yes,
a pretty common pattern as well. And but
yes,
it's so interesting to analyze that because it might be a phenomenon that's typical for the cultures where food is either highly processed or stripped of
yeah,
fat because
yes,
when you eat enough fat, you just
I,
have natural appetite control and weight
exactly,
control.
exactly,
You reach your optimal weight
yeah,
without processed foods and you're good to go. So and you
right.
don't have like some wild appetite. Then, do you think that your current lifestyle helps you to uh, keep you in remission for this ED or completely or whether it completely cured your ED? And in general, can you describe how your mentality surrounding food, the act of eating, changed after you quit veganism?
Yeah, changing my diet to eating more animal based has definitely helped. I feel much more in control of my food. My appetite is at a normal level. I look forward to eating my food, but it doesn't like my whole life doesn't revolve around it anymore. And I look more at food now as really like nourishment and like rebuilding, like cell turnover and strong bones and healthy muscles. I don't look at it as just this like this thing I have to do and that I need to control and analyze. And I just look at it as I need to nourish my body and take care of myself. And I can
Hmm.
look back now and just be so grateful that everything that I put my body through, it has been resilient and strong through all of it. And I'm just so grateful that our bodies, they always want to, have homeostasis. They always want to thrive, and that's their goal. And now I see that my diet can enhance that and allow that my body to naturally just thrive as it wants to.
Nice. So, if you were to compare your body and your psyche on a vegan diet versus now, what changes about yourself impressed you the most during your recovery? And was there anything that left you surprised, like about what could have happened with you
Yeah,
just by changing the
absolutely.
diet?
Absolutely. I dealt with a lot of anxiety was a huge issue for me. When I was in my early teens, but of course I was heavily, I was restricting at that time, but throughout my teens and my 20s, I dealt with a lot of anxiety and some depression and um, a little bit of self-harm stuff. And so basically, once I started actually giving my brain cholesterol, it basically, a lot of it went away. I have minor anxiety. There's some things I still struggle with, but for the most part, so much more mental stability and emotional stability, and I don't have like these crazy mood swings. Like if I didn't eat soon enough when I was vegan, I would just
Mhm.
have these terrible mood swings. And it's just not like that anymore. I just feel more calm and peaceful, and yeah, and a lot less anxiety.
Do you feel like some sense of being grounded, more powerful
Yes,
physically, like more like
absolutely.
solidified? I don't know.
No, absolutely. Like I said, I remember just when I ate eating my first animal foods, I remember just feeling human again. And another thing is I remember kind of feeling like for when I was vegan, it was almost like I was operating outside of the circle of life and in our environment and the way that we interact with the animals and the world around us. It was almost like I was kind of isolated from that through veganism. And
Mhm.
then once I started eating animal foods again, I did feel like this grounding and like this wild connection to animals and to the earth around me. And I just, yeah, it felt very great. So that kind of was like a mental switch for me as well that I didn't even realize was happening.
That sounds very familiar too.
Yeah.
I remember that moment as well when I just felt like I belong to the world now,
Yeah,
suddenly.
exactly. It's a
Because
weird, yeah, weird thing.
because like especially in the raw vegan community, they all talk about high vibes. Like you have
Yeah.
some super high vibrations.
Yeah.
And I remember going through the phase where I was like, wow, I feel that because I also read the
Mhm.
book by I forgot the name of the author, but the book was Return to the Brain of Eden, and he was talking
Mm.
about how our brain formed as fruitarian, and that any consumption of animal products kind of inhibited our brain development and
Mm.
caused us to pursue a more like animalistic, so to speak, reproductive strategy, and basically prevented us from developing some brain superpowers that used to be accessible for us back in the day.
Right.
Which again, any well, paleontology, anthropology would disagree with us
Right.
shaping as fruitarians because there are pretty solid evidence about us evolving rapidly, specifically in response to introduction of animal products. But he was bringing this theory up, and one of the things was stimulation of the pineal gland
Mm.
and pumping a lot of DMT, and that when you start eating plants only, especially the raw fruits, that is supposed to flood you with natural DMT. It's supposed to bring you to some next energetic level, some next level of brain function, some developed psychic abilities almost and stuff like that. But he didn't use any mysticism. He tried to motivate it through natural biochemistry, basically.
Mm.
And so with that, actually, I felt that at first, after like maybe a year on raw vegan diet, I felt those high vibes. But
Yeah,
then they felt like moments of euphoria. I would just
exactly.
randomly go somewhere and I would just feel a flush through my
Mhm.
body of some euphoria and I would be like, wow. But then that thing switched to flashes of anxiety, like sudden anxiety.
Exactly. Yep.
And I indeed felt that if you were to visualize high vibrations, like you're floating somewhere, I felt like
Mhm.
I was just torn from Earth, and I felt so vulnerable because of that. I don't know. And then when I
Yeah.
started eating animal products, I was like, "Ooh,
Yeah, it's a really like grounding feeling as opposed to like elevated, high vibe, euphoria. Yeah, they feel very different.
mm-hmm."
Yeah.
And that at the same time gives you a lot of foundation, and it gives you a lot of
Yes,
you get plugged into some very strong nurturing power almost.
exactly.
And so like probably I mean that's the best I can describe it for people who never experienced that. And
Right.
I'm happy you agree you kind of experienced that too probably.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Definitely.
You responded that as an ex-vegan, you found yourself engaging in conflicts with other people on the
Yeah.
basis of the diet.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, a lot of it is still my in-laws and my family. We, like I said, we love to have like healthy banter back and forth. But the most of the stuff is has to do with like raw milk, a lot of people think that raw milk is going to make you sick. And so that's something I kind of go back and forth about. And then another really big one for me is cholesterol, because I think cholesterol is just demonized so much in our Western culture. And I look at it, and red meat, cholesterol and red meat kind of go hand in hand. And I just look at them as like healing foods. And I see like our body uses cholesterol as a band-aid to try and help damage, but yet it's so demonized, and so it makes me sad. And I yeah, I go at it from different angles. I'm like, why would a human woman's breast milk just be full of cholesterol? It's the food that's actually from humans for humans, and it's packed with cholesterol. Why would that be the case if cholesterol is bad for us? And so I love to, I guess, have just healthy banter back and forth with like friends and family, and try and push the boundaries there with, my newfound research.
Makes sense. Makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah, that's I somehow also find myself sometimes in our not in arguments about necessarily, but yeah, also in debates
Yeah.
with my mom mostly.
Oh, okay.
And we had a moment when we had to go back and forth because she was not understanding veganism and why I was so passionate about quitting it.
Yeah.
Why I was so passionate about eating animal products again. For her, it was
Yeah.
like something weird. And I was like, you
Yeah.
just don't understand what
Yeah.
veganism really is. She's like, who cares? It's just a personal business. Why, like, first of all, why put labels on? And then
Yeah.
why, like, make big deal of it? And so I had to, like, have conversations with her about all of those
Mhm.
things. And I was like, this nutrient was deficient. This nutrient was deficient. This nutrient was deficient. You need to eat so much to just get this nutrient and that nutrient.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I had moments like that, probably just trying to explain why I was
Yeah.
passionate, why I was grieving my experience, probably why I was regretting that. And why it's so important to eat animal products because my mom was always
Absolutely.
plant-based leaning.
Oh, okay.
So, but I mean, she's not vegan. She's against labels against veganism, but
Yeah.
so some things, it's hard to maybe hard to explain to people. So I hear you on that.
Yeah, and there'll be other things, like if we're kind of going to a gathering with friends or something, or maybe at a restaurant, then I'll kind of chime in with, well, these vegetables are sprayed with glyphosate, and I'll
Mhm.
strike up conversation and different things about like maybe pesticides or food dyes or preservatives, and all different kinds of things. So I just kind of, I guess, tend to be someone who likes to stir the pot in that way.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's why I end up getting in stuff like conversations like that.
But it's good to make people think about those things too,
Yeah,
because
exactly. I'm passionate about it. And so I like to, have a
Mhm.
conversation about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have actually my stepfather is the person who I actually have super cool conversations about it
Oh,
because
that's fun.
he himself is super passionate about meat. He's the one who eats raw
Yeah.
meat. He's like, this is the secret how to choose raw meat. You gotta eat this. It's
Nice.
totally safe. You need
Nice.
a lot of cholesterol for vitamin D, vitamin K too. He's always like sending some
Exactly.
videos. So I have a blast on that realm. But yeah.
That's what yeah, I'll tell them, I'm like, you need cholesterol to make every hormone in your body right. And they're like, this lady's crazy. And I'm like, look it up.
Let's do some social analysis. Do you
Okay.
notice that veganism, plant-based, are becoming a global thing? Do you feel like there is an alliance between vegan everything and corporations, governments? Do you notice that it infiltrates certain like public social events and such? And what is your prognosis about it? About the role of veganism in the world and general plant-based agenda, if you believe that plant-based agenda exists. What are your feelings about it?
Oh, yeah, I definitely think that there is a plant-based agenda. I think that, like you said, buying up farmland and different things like that. I think these companies, I don't know really what, I don't know
Careful,
how,
careful.
yeah, exactly. I have to be careful about what I say. Not sure how big it is or how organized it is, but I do see a push in that direction. Will it? I don't think it will ever, really completely. work to make everyone vegan, but I do think it will be successful in the fact of just making people more weak or sick or tired or have more health problems. And I guess I would say that because I was so drastic in it, I've seen the drastic change. So even if people are just incorporating more meatless days or more, plant-based burger, eat a plant-based, what is it, Beyond Burger or something every once in a while, I think they still will see health problems from that. So yeah, I do think that there is somewhat of a push, and the reason we can all speculate, but I see it.
It's interesting because you are what? You're the second person I think that I've talked to who lives in
Okay.
the US. And I
Oh
actually
yeah.
got to hear perspective of other people who live in different European countries.
Mm,
And the answers actually vary a lot.
really?
So yeah. And you will see in the other interviews
Yeah,
what
yeah.
people have to say about that. But I'm just gathering people's opinions and feelings about it because I myself I like often think, okay, am I in the bubble of all of this veganism, anti-veganism, or is it something that people in general tend to be aware of? Because this is my work, right? So I kind of get exposed to
Mm-hmm.
certain aspects of that. And when I see that nonsense in Olympic Games when they did this plant-based show, then not that I watched them, I just saw a bunch of news about it.
Mm-hmm.
Then the White House had some initiative about going vegan. So basically, their cafeteria in White House, I think, were vegan.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
That
interesting.
initiative, something like that. So I see all that, and at the same time, I also get exposed to the opposite happening in the world. And then I hear that, for example, doctors who do put people on malnourishment protocols, they keep their
Yes.
licenses. People who
Yep.
do not put people on malnourishment protocols and suggest alternative therapies, they get their licenses revoked. So I see this disproportion between plant
Yeah.
based and anything else. And then
Yeah.
when I go to read the papers, I see that there are very poorly designed studies that use the umbrella term plant based to
Yeah.
just push the narrative. They are not they're not like satisfactorily designed studies,
Yeah.
but they all have this message. I see a lot of ridiculous things in the papers, even describing some particular nutrients, for example, some particular health aspects, when they literally, even like little psychological things, like good source of iron is leafy greens,
Of
then
course. Yeah.
beans, and then we see foods with iron, with actual iron.
Right.
So all of those little things, I'm noticing them literally everywhere.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
that's very interesting where it will bring the society to because
Yeah.
percentage of vegans is very low. And I
Yes.
myself was on plant-based diet and I could not reverse my anemia no matter what.
Exactly. Well, and that's why I feel like I don't think that, there will ever be a huge vegan culture necessarily. I think it will just be people feeling because they're being told by doctors and by officials that this is a very healthy way to eat, eating meat replacements and eating more just plant-based food, even if it's processed, even if it's full of sugar, even if it's full of seed oils, it's vegan, so it's healthier. And so there's that mentality that they're being told by doctors. And so I think more people will just incorporate more of that into their day-to-day diet. And I do not think that that's good at all.
It's especially, I think, bad for kids, both
It
in terms
is.
of their malnutrition, but then at the same
Yeah,
time, what we eat as children oftentimes shapes our palate in general for foods. So
absolutely.
if a child is deprived of the knowledge of how actual food and nutrition feels,
Yeah.
if they're raised on foods that are void of nutrition,
Yeah.
they will not be able to follow the intuitive path anymore. So that's another thing that
And
is
the
concerning.
schools in America are the food that they feed the children, it's near feels criminal almost.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Sometimes you see the review of their menus and I'm like,
It's terrible. Yeah, it's really bad.
my child gets will be when I have one. We'll have
Yes.
we'll have lunchbox packed up
Yes.
for
Exactly.
sure.
Agreed. Agreed.
It's like it's not hard for me to boil a piece of meat and put
Yeah,
like a couple of I don't know like pieces of fruit in there. So
exactly. And when you, another thing real quick, when you start eating actual food and real, meat and cheese and um, just good quality fruits and vegetables, then you can taste like the other food, the processed food, like if you went to a school cafeteria or something, or even a lot of restaurants, the food doesn't even taste good. And other people who maybe are just eating some more standard run, like processed food or something, they think the food tastes good, but I'm like, this doesn't even taste good because I eat like actual, real food. I don't know if that makes any sense, but your palate really does change, is I guess what I'm
mhm.
alluding to.
Yeah, it just feels like processed food may even like if it's like your first impression, if you're conditioned to that for that,
Yeah,
you can taste that, okay, it tastes like sweet, it tastes strong, but then you swallow it and your first reaction of the body is pretty bad. And so it feels
yeah,
like mild intoxication, which averts you from that food moving forward.
yeah,
I just don't want it because you know that almost immediate negative effect will
yeah,
follow. So
yeah,
instinctually, you're like, "Bleh, I'm not gonna eat this anymore." But if it's your baseline condition that you don't know otherwise, if you're not familiar with how good food feels, then you just would think that all food is like that, but it's not the case for sure.
yeah.
One of the fields that is kind of in development right now, in pretty rapid development, and I noticed that it gets a lot of traction in science and it gets a lot of funding, a lot of attention is lab grown meat.
Yeah.
That is something that some specifically ethical environmental vegans are anticipating as an option for them to introduce, let's say, harm free animal products in their diet. What is your opinion on lab grown meat?
Mhm.
Would you try it? And,
No, no, I would never try it. I don't, I don't think it's right. I think it's playing too much with nature in a way, and it's not the way God intended, and it's not, I don't think it could ever taste right, or I don't know. It's disturbing to me, and it's not something that I would ever get behind. And I can see why some, like you said, if they're only an ethical vegan and they're not, and they still think meat is unhealthy to some degree, then they might be willing to get behind it. But I don't think we should be doing that, doing lab grown meat.
yeah, it's actually one of the things that bothers me about it is that it's it will always rely on the amount of knowledge that humans have harvested about the product, about the meat.
Mm,
So we cannot synthesize
yeah,
more perfect thing than nature and more
yeah,
than our current knowledge allows us to. And I saw that there is some research that kind of how to design it, how to create conditions for it to have more like all of this, like fatty acids, for example, or these vitamins and that. So with that in mind, that's what's concerning to me about it because I, knowing the state of science right
yeah,
now, nutritional science is one of the worst. Like it's really difficult to find any consensus in it. It's very
yes,
difficult to establish some rigor in this
yeah,
science, and there's so much outdated information that is only now being like challenged, changed. There's so much to research. And when we say that we're going to create this replica that is kind of fully mimicking this product, I just can't believe that because
mhm,
we do not know everything about this natural food. And even if we were to replicate it in accordance to what we know so far, we don't know much more than we know. So
exactly.
that's what concerns me about the subject. And then I feel like all environmentally, but we'll get into environmental area probably
Yeah,
because I don't, I struggle to believe that animal, like some healthful, nice integrated animal agriculture is that
mhm.
big deal for ecology.
Yeah, and I don't know the whole process, but what kind of, are they using any kind of like solvents or? or chemicals, like what, I don't know the whole process, but I'd have to imagine it's a pretty intense process. And you know how they like make the industrial seed oils, it's quite a lengthy process. And so I would imagine creating lab grown meat is something similar. And I just would much prefer to be in alignment with nature. That's how I feel now.
Yeah, I'm not sure because I mean, yeah, they take cell culture and then they stimulate the division, I'm assuming. But that, yeah, to stabilize it, to keep it in some homeostasis while it getting formed, develops, and
Yeah,
such. When you add all of those, when you, I really want to read more about the
yeah,
technology that they're using because
yeah,
if there are some additives that happen externally, not like stimulated growth of certain, not stimulated synthesis of certain nutrients, but addition of certain nutrients, then it's kind of sketchy. But I really want to read more. I don't want to make speculations on that. But just big from big picture, I agree with you probably on that because I I'm seriously skeptical about humans' ability to perform such an all-encompassing
yeah.
experimentation. So
Yes, I agree.
there are always gray areas, dark spots, something that we couldn't
Hmm.
have thought about in advance.
Exactly.
Then the question is, you probably analyzed your vegan path. You've probably seen other people doing it because you probably like looked at certain like ex-vegan stories and such. Current vegans possibly saw their deterioration. Do you have an opinion on, in general, what a good vegan diet could be? And maybe who vegan diet would work for the best? So, do you think it's in general possible for a vegan diet to work as a lifelong or very long term nutritional strategy for people? And if so, then in what circumstances and with what nutritional design?
Well, first you asked if I kind of analyzing my own vegan diet, and I think that there's definitely things I could have done better. I think I definitely should have looked more into supplements and should have been more strict with supplements because my diet had so many gaps in it. I don't think we should have to eat all of those or take all of those supplements. I think most of it should come from our food, but because my diet had so many gaps, I should have supplemented more probably. But basically, I really don't think that anyone can have a very successful if they are a long-term vegan. I don't think they're I don't know. I don't think you can really be successful long-term vegan, to be honest. I think it'll always catch up at some point. Is my thought on it.
But then, like when you look at, for example, there are some YouTubers, some bloggers who are vegan and they're long-term vegans and they're
Yeah,
still doing it.
yeah.
Like they exist. They report that they feel great.
I have a
Awesome.
feeling that they're probably lying. I think that there's probably some dishonesty in there. I just don't see how. I mean, maybe they're able to do it, but I don't. I personally don't think they're. I think there's probably things going on behind the scenes that we're not privy to. That's my opinion on it. I'm not sure though.
Yeah. Actually, a question. Can you tell a vegan by appearance?
Yeah. I think the skin's like washed out and with the anemia issues and their eyes get like more like sunken in. I think your appearance definitely changes. So I think you can, but so they're definitely eating mostly vegan, but I don't know. I don't see how someone has just been vegan or raw vegan for as long as they're claiming. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, this kind of like I feel like after I've quit, I started getting exposed to more information about certain dishonesty.
Yeah.
Like I followed pretty much one person for the most part in terms of raw veganism, and
Yeah.
I started hearing that, started being more attentive, and started valuing his occasional notes that here and there he eats this animal food, this animal food, this animal food is not
Mm-hmm.
fanatic. And I always thought that how can it matter that you eat it once in a while? But then when I lived in full abstinence from animal products, I realized that potentially that's what literally holds him, keeps him afloat. And probably he does it
Exactly.
more frequently than he reports because
Exactly.
he wanted it to be explicit that he's not um fully vegan, which gives him moral freedom, I guess, to just do it whenever feels like he needs to. So
Yeah.
but I could not appreciate the importance of even those occasional events of consumption of animal products because fat soluble vitamins they go a long way.
They do. They go a long way. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, so let's say you meet someone and you become good friends or develop trusting relationships, and they announce to you that they are considering switching to a vegan diet because it's so amazing. And what would you tell them?
I would highly discourage them from doing that, but I know I probably wouldn't have listened either. So I would be understanding and sympathetic, but I would also give a healthy amount of pushback and kind of question, like bioavailability and fat soluble vitamins, and hopefully plant some seeds in their mind that they might want to do some further investigation before they fully commit to something like that. And obviously, I would want to share my some of my personal story with them so they can have an understanding of what can happen and what usually ends up happening, because that was what was amazing to me is when I stopped being vegan and I started looking into ex-vegan stories, and there's kind of a
Hmm.
structure or an outline. There's a lot of similarities that happen. There's a pattern here. So there's something to learn from that. So I would probably introduce them to maybe some ex-vegan stories.
You're saying about the pattern. I saw the pattern in literally like in every single ex-vegan survey.
Yeah,
There were two blocks in health outcomes that were identical throughout the,
really.
yeah, for everybody. Everybody had certain things. Like,
Yeah,
I will discuss that later, but
yeah.
I was surprised and I was even laughing. Like, every single one. I'm just scrolling down to
I
check.
bet.
At
I
this point,
bet.
it's like, okay, do we have check marks here? Yeah, sure. Not
I
surprised.
bet. That does not surprise me.
Yeah. Actually, you mentioned that certain like nutrients. Now that in the beginning you said that you did research on vegan nutrition, but then now you understand that it wasn't complete. Could you
Yeah.
comment on what you learned about vegan nutrition and why now you think it's kind of an inaccurate school of thought in terms of nutritional adequacy?
Um, hmm. To go way back to my vegan nutritional science. Yeah, it was just I remember hearing now I think about it and it's so crazy, but it was things like if you eat enough calories, you'll get enough protein. Like that was terrible. But I was hearing things like that. So if you eat the rainbow, you'll get enough, if you're eating all the different colors. And I would hear like, oh, beans and rice will make a complete protein for you and just different stuff like that. So it wasn't very thorough, but these were just some of the things that were really in my head, and I had no idea about the bioavailability. So I was researching protein, like I forget what it was, but like a pound of protein had more, or excuse me, a pound of broccoli had more protein than a steak or something like that. And this is just ridiculous now hearing it. And but these are the things that I thought, spinach and broccoli, these all have protein. So I would somewhat count up my daily protein intake and including all of these things, not realizing that my body cannot synthesize all of this protein and cannot, do that. But
Spinach is also high in calcium.
yes,
An
some,
amazing bound calcium that just passes
right?
right through you. So,
Exactly. Maybe some kidney stones or something.
mhm. Yeah. By the way, when I was researching for the video on cholesterol,
Yeah.
I found a paper that was discussing that cholesterol in general, even like synthesized cholesterol, is some mistake of evolution or something that should be removed from humans altogether. So there is I think it was like a couple of scientists who wrote that, and they told that cholesterol in general corresponds to the archaic reproductive strategy when people had children early on and then were dying like almost immediately after childbearing. So
Hmm.
he was speculating that for our current longevity and for our current reproductive strategy, now that people kind of like have extended period of like childhood, I guess, and they have children later in life
Yes.
and tend to live much longer, cholesterol in general creates more problems than helps people. So it was a very interesting read. I hope I saved it because I want to send it to people. Just a very curious read,
Yeah.
very curious
Yeah, it sounds
logical
like it.
experiment. Because with cholesterol, I remember too that exogenous cholesterol is not needed. But then I started reading and I realized that you can be a poor synthesizer of cholesterol. And you can't do
Right.
anything with it. It's just your physiology. So your body is more attuned to absorb cholesterol better from the GI tract.
Yeah.
And if you have a lot of fiber, then you're not capable of fulfilling those needs if your body relies on absorption because fiber just
Yeah.
flushes it out. So a lot of those little things, they kind of changed my perspective on all the vegan teachings as well. Because actually, with the anti-nutrients too, I remember
Hmm.
that they had answers for a lot of the things to motivate their validity, to motivate the safety of the diet. I remember reading about choline and methionine being harmful. So they were like, yes, vegan diet is deficient in methionine and choline, but you don't need much. And now what we see new papers say that no, we need enough of them. We need the 100% RDV for
Yeah.
normal functioning of the body. And now we see that Dr. Greger says that vegans need to take creatine if they
Hmm.
have elevated homocysteine, because that proves to me that methionine deficiency is very bad because methionine gets spent to produce your internal creatine. So internal synthesis of nutrients, non-essential nutrients, it depends on how much essential nutrients you get. You cannot just synthesize something without any reagents, without any chemistry. And that was something that I also became aware of later on. You just cannot synthesize enough of non-essential nutrients if you barely barely reach 100% of our DV of nutrients from food on a vegan diet.
And especially with the majority of plant foods are going to be their nutrients are bound, like you said, in the and with all the anti-nutrients. So especially if you're not properly preparing, like fermenting or soaking your grains, which I did not do on a vegan diet,
Mm-hmm.
then you're especially there's just no way that you your body's going to be able to pull anything from that food hardly.
Yeah, and plus another thing, you need to literally puree everything
Yeah,
because we do not have no animal on earth is capable of fully pureeing animal or plant matter. It's
yeah,
impossible.
exactly.
So even like ruminant animals, they have this multi-phase chewing, digestion, and stuff like
Yes.
that, and regurgitation of their food.
Yeah,
Then very branched out digestive system. So that is another
exactly.
thing. So if you don't break it down, which you cannot because otherwise, I mean, we have only one change of teeth. We can
Yeah.
we cannot just chew all day. And another thing I remember in vegans' teachings, they were talking a lot about phytase and how phytase would increase in synthesis, and it actually was something super good, protecting the gut from like colon cancer or something. And I remember I was sold to this idea of phytase just it being increased in production when you eat a lot of phytates with food. But I want to learn more about it because this theory seems to be not working. I think it's just an adaptation to kind of get by. But when all of your protein and minerals are coming as part of phytate complexes, I think you just can't. You cannot satisfy the the supply of phytase in order to break down everything that comes into you.
Exactly.
And then what was I thinking? There was something else as well. I don't remember. And then yeah, microbiome theory as well. That microbiome is capable of producing literally everything out there.
Yeah,
Should you feed it a lot of fiber? Many things like that. Many little things happen to be not not working in real life somehow.
exactly.
So it's, I wish vegan people or people who are considering veganism read deeper into that.
I agree.
So, quick question: veganism for you, never again or depends?
Oh, absolutely never, ever, 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 ever again.
Sure.
Never again.
Sure. And the last question I have is, in your opinion, what could each human do to positively impact the world?
Like this question. I would say I think a lot of people are either just kind of focused just more on themselves or maybe looking at like big global or problems in the whole country. And I think what we should do is kind of just focus more on um, what can we do to make a good impact on our immediate people around us, our neighbors, our friends, our family. Can we be of service to any of them and make an impact locally? And that also kind of goes with saying to support people locally. So instead of buying from like a big buying food or anything from a big company or big corporation, I really love to support local ranchers, local farmers, all that kind of stuff kind of ties in with that. I think that's super important. And I would also want to add just get some sunshine. I think everyone needs to get more fresh air and sunshine, and I think they'd be happier people.
For sure.
Yeah,
That's yeah, that's something that's very close to my heart too, because I think that we're missing something very humane about our
yeah,
lives in the modern world.
I
And
agree.
it's so beautiful to interact with humans in real life and just in a humane level when it's,
Yeah,
yeah, when you just see like how your small actions make someone happier.
yeah.
It just gives you feelings that you don't even want to conceptualize. It's just like pure happiness kind of.
Yeah, it feels like we're kind of missing like that immediate like human interaction, like just
Mhm.
saying hi to people and giving someone a smile. A lot of people are just on their phone and don't even make eye contact anymore. And I try and just be more friendly and like bake. When was the last time someone like baked cookies and brought it to their neighbor? I don't know, just little things like that. I think that like makes the world a better place.
Yeah, I don't know even the names of my neighbors currently. That's so sad.
Yeah,
Should go meet them.
exactly. See, there you go. Now you have a homework assignment.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very nice. Thank you
Yeah,
so much. Thank you so much
you're
for
so.
sharing your thoughts
Oh,
today.
yeah, of course. You're so welcome. Thank you so much for doing this survey. It means a lot. I'm excited to be able to participate and help you out, and I'm eager to hear the results of all the data after it's analyzed, and excited to get my story out and hopefully help other people who might be thinking about going down this path.
Thank you so much. It's really, really, really valuable. And I
Yeah,
really appreciate all your time and contributions. And I feel really honored about it. And thank you so much. And
you're so welcome. Yeah, thank you.